Most men believe they understand power, yet they surrender it daily without realizing what they have lost. I have spent decades observing this pattern, watching capable individuals hand over their authority to those far less deserving. The tragedy is not that they lack strength, but that they never learned to recognize when it was being taken from them. I shall be direct with you. What I am about to reveal contradicts everything you have been taught about leadership, influence, and human nature. These are not theories crafted in comfortable offices by men who have never faced true pressure. These are principles I discovered through fire, through failure, through the brutal education that only crisis can provide. The world operates on rules that are never spoken aloud. While others debate what should be, I learned to master what is. And what is, my friend, is far more ruthless than what should be. Most men spend their lives playing by rules that exist only in their imagination, wondering why they cannot advance while others, seemingly less qualified, rise above them. Let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why the loudest voice in the room rarely belongs to the most knowledgeable person? Why the individual with the best ideas often watches someone else receive credit for them? Why loyalty, competence, and hard work seem to guarantee nothing, while others advance through means you cannot quite identify? I have watched this phenomenon across every domain of human endeavor. In politics, in war, in business, in society itself, the pattern remains constant. Those who understand the true mechanics of influence shape the world around them. Those who do not become shaped by others. Today, I shall teach you 7 principles that most men will never comprehend, not because they are complex, but because accepting them requires abandoning comfortable illusions about fairness, merit, and justice. These principles exist whether you acknowledge them or not. The question is whether you will master them or remain their victim. Before we begin, understand this. Knowledge of this nature carries responsibility. I am not teaching you to become a tyrant or a manipulator. I am teaching you to recognize tyranny and manipulation when they are used against you. The difference is everything. First principle, never reveal your full capabilities at once. I learned this lesson early, watching men destroy themselves through excessive display of their talents. The human mind craves mystery, yet most people exhaust themselves trying to prove their worth immediately. I have observed countless individuals enter new situations, determined to demonstrate every skill they possess. They believe this impressive display will secure their position. Instead, it accomplishes the opposite. Once others know the full extent of what you can do, they categorize you. They place limits on you. They begin to take your abilities for granted. The strategic mind reveals competence gradually. Each new display of capability becomes an event, something remarkable rather than expected. This creates a sense that you possess depths yet unexplored, resources yet untapped. Others begin to wonder what else you might be capable of. And that wondering becomes respect, then dependence, then influence. Consider the negotiation. The amateur enters with every argument prepared, every fact marshaled, every advantage displayed. He believes this overwhelming presentation will secure victory. Yet the experienced negotiator enters with a single strong position, holding his remaining arguments in reserve. As the discussion progresses, he introduces new elements when they serve his purpose. The amateur exhausts his ammunition in the first exchange. The strategist maintains firepower throughout the entire engagement. This principle extends beyond professional dealings. In every relationship, every conversation, every interaction, there exists a temptation to prove yourself completely. Resist this impulse. Let others discover your qualities over time. What is revealed slowly is valued more highly than what is displayed immediately. Second principle, control the frame of every interaction. Most men enter conversations hoping to be understood. This is weakness disguised as communication. The moment you allow others to define the terms of engagement, you have already conceded the most important ground. I have witnessed negotiations where one party spent the entire time responding to questions, addressing concerns, defending positions they never intended to take. They believed they were participating in a discussion. In reality, they were being controlled by someone who understood that whoever sets the agenda determines the outcome. The skilled operator does not respond to the frame others attempt to impose. Instead, he establishes his own context and draws others into it. When someone attempts to put you on the defensive, you redirect conversation to ground of your choosing. When they try to make you explain yourself, you shift focus to what they must prove to you. This requires preparation and practice. Before entering any significant interaction, determine what you want to accomplish. What is your preferred outcome? What frame serves that purpose? Then guide the conversation toward that territory, regardless of where others attempt to lead it. Watch how this works in practice. Someone says, "Why should we trust you with this responsibility?" The amateur begins listing qualifications, desperately trying to prove worthiness. The strategist responds, "The question is whether this opportunity aligns with my current priorities. Tell me why this matters more than the other project seeking my attention." Notice the shift. Instead of defending his value, he has positioned himself as someone whose time and energy are valuable resources. Instead of seeking approval, he is evaluating whether to grant it. The same fact may eventually be discussed, but now they serve his purpose rather than answering their challenge. Third principle, master the power of strategic silence. Words are the most overused and least effective tool in human interaction. Most men believe that talking demonstrates intelligence, engagement, and leadership. I have learned the opposite. Silence is the weapon that reveals everything while concealing your own thoughts. When others speak, they reveal their priorities, their fears, their weaknesses, their strategies. When you remain silent, they fill that void with assumptions, usually favorable to your position. Silence makes others uncomfortable, and in their discomfort, they often concede ground they never intended to surrender. I have sat through countless meetings where the person who spoke least wielded the most influence, not because they lacked opinions, but because they understood that premature speech weakens position. They listened while others exhausted themselves in argument. They observed while others revealed their limitations. When they finally spoke, their words carried weight because they had been scarce. This principle proves particularly powerful during confrontation. When someone attacks your position or challenges your authority, the instinct is to respond immediately and forcefully. This instinct betrays you. Instead, allow silence to hang in the air. Let them feel the weight of their accusation. Often, they will begin to doubt themselves, to soften their position, to seek your approval rather than maintaining their challenge. Silence also protects you from the trap of over-explanation. The moment you begin justifying your decisions to those who lack authority to judge them, you have granted them power over you. Your silence communicates that their approval is neither sought nor required. Fourth principle, always maintain multiple options. Dependency is the death of influence. The moment others know you have no alternatives, they own you completely. I have watched capable men destroy themselves by becoming indispensable to a single outcome, a single relationship, a single source of validation or support. The strategic mind cultivates abundance in every area of importance, not because he is greedy or disloyal, but because options create strength. When you have alternatives, you negotiate from confidence rather than desperation. When others know you have alternatives, they treat you with respect rather than taking you for granted. This principle applies to every domain: professional relationships, personal connections, sources of income, methods of achieving your goals. The man with one plan has no plan. The man with one ally has no security. The man with one path forward has already chosen dependence over power. Yet most men resist this wisdom. They believe that focusing entirely on a single opportunity demonstrates commitment and increases their chances of success. This is the thinking of an employee, not a leader. Leaders always have contingencies. They always maintain options. They never allow themselves to become trapped by their own success or failure. The man who maintains multiple paths forward never begs for permission to walk any of them. He simply chooses his direction based on what serves his purpose, not what others prefer him to do. This abundance of options must be cultivated deliberately. I have observed men who stumbled into success yet remain weak because they never developed the systems that created their good fortune. When circumstances changed, they had no recourse. They had built their entire position on a single foundation. And when that foundation cracked, everything collapsed. Build relationships across different spheres of influence. Develop skills that transfer between domains. Create value in ways that do not depend entirely on the approval or cooperation of any single individual or institution. This is not paranoia. This is preparation for the inevitable, changes that life will demand of you. Fifth principle, never argue when you can simply redirect. Arguments are the playground of the weak. They believe that reason will triumph, that the best ideas will naturally prevail, that truth spoken with sufficient passion will overcome opposition. I have learned that arguing rarely changes minds. It only hardens positions and wastes energy. The skilled operator does not debate. He redirects attention to ground where his position is stronger. When someone challenges his judgment, he does not defend it. Instead, he questions their qualifications to judge. When they attack his methods, he does not explain those methods. Instead, he focuses on results that speak for themselves. I have sat through countless discussions where one party became increasingly frustrated, raising their voice, marshalling facts, demanding acknowledgement of their superior logic. Meanwhile, their opponent remained calm, asking simple questions that exposed the weaknesses in their position. Who do you think commanded respect in that room? This principle requires discipline. Your ego will demand that you prove your intelligence, demonstrate your knowledge, show others how wrong they are. Resist these impulses. They serve your pride, not your purpose. The moment you begin arguing, you have already accepted a subordinate position. You have agreed to justify yourself to someone who lacks the authority to judge you. Instead, learn the art of the strategic question. When someone claims you are wrong, ask them to explain their qualifications to make such an assessment. When they demand explanations, ask them why this information matters to them. When they challenge your authority, ask them what authority they possess to issue such challenges. Notice how this works. You are not being rude or dismissive. You are simply requiring them to justify their position before you invest energy in responding to it. Most people cannot meet this standard. They retreat or reveal the weakness of their ground. Either outcome serves your purpose better than argument. Sixth principle, control information. Flow like water through a dam. Information is currency. And like any currency, its value depends on scarcity and timing. Most men treat information carelessly, sharing everything they know in hopes of appearing helpful or knowledgeable. This generosity impoverishes them. I have observed that those who control information flow control the decisions that follow. When you possess knowledge that others need, you hold power over them. When you release that knowledge strategically, you shape their thinking and their choices. When you withhold it appropriately, you create dependence and respect. The amateur shares information to prove his value. He answers every question completely, provides context he was not asked for, volunteers details that serve no purpose except to demonstrate his involvement and knowledge. He believes this transparency builds trust. Instead, it diminishes his importance. Once others have extracted all useful information from him, they no longer need him. The strategist treats information as an asset to be invested wisely. He provides enough to be helpful, but not so much that others can proceed without him. He answers questions precisely, but does not elaborate beyond what serves his purpose. He creates situations where others must return to him for additional guidance or clarification. This does not mean being secretive or deceptive. It means being intentional about what you share, when you share it, and why you share it. Every piece of information you release should serve a specific purpose in achieving your objectives. Information released without purpose is opportunity wasted. Consider how this applies to your daily interactions. When colleagues ask about your projects, do not provide complete status reports unless such reports serve your interests. When superiors seek updates, give them what they need to make decisions. Not everything you know about the situation. When subordinates request guidance, provide direction that enables their progress without eliminating their dependence on your continued involvement. Seventh principle, master the timing of your presence and absence. Most men believe that being constantly available demonstrates dedication and reliability. I have learned that availability without limits destroys respect. When others can reach you at any time, for any reason, they begin to treat your time as worthless. The strategic mind understands that scarcity creates value. When your presence becomes an event rather than an assumption, others pay attention. When your attention must be earned rather than demanded, it becomes precious. When your approval is granted selectively rather than freely, it carries weight. I have watched men work themselves into exhaustion, answering every call, attending every meeting, responding to every request immediately. They believed this constant availability would make them indispensable. Instead, it made them invisible. Others learned to take their presence for granted and their contributions for granted as well. The alternative requires courage. You must be willing to disappoint some people in order to command respect from all people. You must be selective about which meetings deserve your attendance, which calls merit immediate response, which requests require your personal involvement. This selectivity sends a message. It communicates that your time has value, that your attention is finite, that your participation makes a difference. Others begin to consider whether their requests truly merit your involvement. They prepare more carefully before seeking your input. They value your contributions more highly because they cannot assume unlimited access to them. Yet timing is everything. Withdraw too completely and you risk irrelevance. Remain too available and you guarantee it. The skill lies in reading situations accurately, understanding when your presence adds value and when your absence creates it. I have used strategic absence to great effect throughout my career. There were times when removing myself from certain discussions allowed others to reach conclusions they would have resisted had I remained to advocate for them. There were occasions when my temporary withdrawal from projects forced others to recognize how much they depended on my contributions. But absence must be purposeful, not petulant. You withdraw not to punish others, but to create conditions that serve your objectives. You return not when summoned, but when your return serves your purpose. This balance between presence and absence becomes a tool of influence more powerful than any argument or display of authority. These 7 principles work together to create something greater than their individual effect. When you reveal your capabilities gradually, control the frame of interactions, use silence strategically, maintain multiple options, redirect rather than argue, manage information flow, and time your presence carefully, you create an aura of competence and authority that others cannot ignore or dismiss. But here is what matters most. These principles are not tricks to manipulate others. They are methods of self-discipline that prevent others from manipulating you. The man who masters these concepts becomes difficult to control, impossible to dismiss, and dangerous to underestimate. Most importantly, these principles protect your energy and focus. Instead of exhausting yourself in pointless battles, proving yourself to unworthy judges, or surrendering your authority to those who cannot wield it wisely, you direct your efforts toward outcomes that actually matter. The world will always contain those who seek to diminish you, use you, or control you for their own purposes. These principles ensure that their efforts fail not through conflict, but through competence, not through aggression, but through strategic thinking, not through force, but through understanding how influence truly operates. I have learned that most men fear being disliked more than they fear being powerless. This fear destroys them before any external enemy ever could. They spend their lives seeking approval from people whose opinions carry no weight, whose judgment lacks wisdom, whose favor means nothing. Let me share what I discovered about the nature of human respect. It cannot be earned through pleasing others. It cannot be purchased through submission. It cannot be granted by those who do not possess it themselves. Respect is taken, not given. It is claimed through action, not requested through words. I have watched men of extraordinary capability reduce themselves to servants in pursuit of acceptance. They apologize for their strengths. They diminish their accomplishments. They seek permission to exist from those who should be seeking their guidance. This is not humility. This is self-destruction disguised as virtue. The weak cannot grant respect to the strong because they do not understand what strength looks like. They mistake confidence for arrogance, decisiveness for cruelty, independence for selfishness. When you seek their approval, you are asking the blind to judge your vision, the deaf to critique your music, the cowardly to evaluate your courage. I learned early that the opinion of the incompetent is worthless. Yet most men collect these worthless opinions like currency, wondering why they feel impoverished despite their vast collection of praise from people who matter not at all. Here is what separates leaders from followers. Leaders do not explain themselves to those who lack the capacity to understand. They do not justify their decisions to those who could not make such decisions themselves. They do not seek validation from those whose validation would diminish rather than enhance their position. When someone questions your authority, you do not defend it, you exercise it. When they challenge your judgment, you do not argue, you demonstrate through results. When they doubt your capabilities, you do not prove them wrong with words. You prove them irrelevant through action. I have observed that the moment you begin explaining yourself to critics, you have already accepted their authority over you. You have granted them the right to judge what they are unqualified to assess. This is the first step towards surrender, and surrender becomes a habit that destroys everything you might have accomplished. The strategic mind operates from a different principle entirely. It understands that certain battles should never be fought because winning them would accomplish nothing of value. When someone attacks your character, your methods, your decisions, ask yourself this question: does their opinion influence outcomes that matter to you? If not, why waste energy responding? I have seen men exhaust themselves defending their honor to people whose attacks actually honored them. They fail to recognize that criticism from the incompetent is endorsement from those who understand excellence. When mediocrities condemn your actions, you should consider whether you are moving in precisely the right direction. Yet this principle requires discernment. Not all criticism comes from weakness. Not all challenges arise from envy. The wise man learns to distinguish between feedback that serves his growth and noise that serves no purpose except to drain his energy. He responds to the former and ignores the latter completely. This brings us to a crucial understanding about human nature that most men never grasp. People respect what they cannot control more than what they can possess. The moment you make yourself available for their judgment, you have made yourself controllable. The moment you become controllable, you lose the respect you sought to gain. I have watched this pattern repeat itself across every domain of human interaction. The employee who constantly seeks his supervisor's approval becomes invisible. The leader who explains every decision to his subordinates loses their confidence. The man who defends himself against every accusation becomes defined by those accusations rather than his own actions. The alternative requires courage that most men do not possess. You must be willing to be misunderstood. You must accept that some will dislike you regardless of your efforts to please them. You must recognize that their dislike often indicates you are doing something right rather than wrong. When you stop seeking approval, something remarkable happens. Others begin seeking yours. When you stop explaining yourself, they start paying attention to your action. When you stop defending your position, they start wondering why you seem so certain of it. This shift in dynamics occurs because human beings are naturally drawn to confidence and repelled by insecurity. When you constantly seek validation, you broadcast insecurity. When you remain secure in your own judgment, you project strength. Others sense this strength even when they cannot articulate what they are sensing. But here is what matters most about this principle. It is not about becoming arrogant or dismissive. It is about understanding the proper relationship between your internal validation and external opinion. Your worth is not determined by consensus. Your value is not established by vote. Your purpose is not defined by popular approval. I have learned that the man who knows his own worth does not need others to confirm it. He appreciates recognition when it comes from qualified sources, but he does not depend on it. He considers criticism when it serves his improvement, but he does not fear it. He values relationships that enhance his life, but he does not sacrifice his principles to maintain them. This independence of spirit becomes magnetic. Others are drawn to those who seem complete within themselves, who do not need external validation to maintain their sense of purpose and direction. They want to understand what creates such certainty, such calmness in the face of opposition. Yet most men fear this independence because it requires accepting responsibility for their own lives completely. It is easier to blame others for not appreciating you than to build something worthy of appreciation. It is more comfortable to complain about unfair treatment than to rise above the need for fair treatment entirely. The path I describe demands that you become your own source of validation, your own judge of worth, your own standard of excellence. This terrifies those who have spent their lives seeking external confirmation of their value. They cannot imagine existing without the constant feedback loop of approval and disapproval from others. But those who master this principle discover something extraordinary. They become unshakable. No insult can wound them because they do not. derive their identity from others' opinions. No rejection can destroy them because they do not depend on others' acceptance. No criticism can paralyze them because they measure themselves against their own standards, not the standards of those who lack the courage to pursue what they pursue. This unshakable quality becomes a form of power that others cannot resist or ignore. When you cannot be manipulated through approval or disapproval, you become dangerous to those who rely on such manipulation. When you cannot be controlled through social pressure, you become valuable to those who understand the rarity of such independence. I have observed that true leadership emerges only when a man stops trying to be liked and starts focusing on being effective. The leader who seeks popularity makes decisions based on what others want to hear rather than what needs to be done. The leader who accepts unpopularity when necessary makes decisions based on what serves the mission, regardless of how those decisions are received. These principles I have shared with you are not suggestions. They are requirements for anyone who refuses to live as a victim of circumstances beyond their control. I have watched empires rise and fall, leaders emerge and crumble. Men of promise surrender their potential to those who understood what they did not. The choice before you is simple. You can continue operating by the rules others have taught you, wondering why your efforts produce mediocre results while lesser men advance beyond you. Or you can accept that power operates by different laws entirely, laws that reward those who understand them and punish those who remain ignorant. I have given you the tools. Whether you use them determines everything that follows. The man who masters these principles becomes untouchable, not through force, but through understanding. He shapes his world rather than being shaped by it. He commands respect without demanding it. He influences outcomes without exhausting himself in pointless struggles. But remember this above all else: knowledge without application is mere entertainment. These principles work only for those who have the courage to implement them, even when doing so requires abandoning comfortable illusions about how the world should operate. The world does not care how it should operate. It operates as it does. Master that reality, and you master everything else.